I saw the monster at 10 minutes to 10 on the 26th of May 2007.
The creature appears to be moving in a serpentine fashion, almost slithering through the water.
As what appears to be a massive creature with a long neck floats just below the surface near the shore.
Locals asking if this is Alaska's own version of the Loch Ness Monster, the much talked about China Chomper.
During the last weekend in August, fans of Nessie went on a huge hunt for the monster. That's when the sixth so-called sighting of the Loch Ness Monster this year was recorded by a woman who was baffled after seeing a curved creature in the legendary water on August 31st. Fiona Wade claimed that it was like nothing I've seen before and I can only describe as Nessie. She reported seeing something similar to which was spotted by civil servant Alistair Gray on August 26th. Mr. Gray saw three odd and seemingly connected shapes near Invermore. Miss Wade said her sighting was almost identical to that seen by Mr. Gray and probably in a very similar location. I might add that I was not aware of this sighting on Saturday until returning home this evening. It initially looked like a periscope, but then two curved areas followed. It was moving about halfway in the loch, looking roughly over to midway between Foyers and Whitebridge, she said. I've seen deer crossing before, but this was like nothing I have seen before, and I can only describe it as Nessie, as I can't think of any other logical thing it could have been. It was large enough to catch my eye and appeared to leave slight wake behind it, she added. The sighting took place at 10:45 a.m. The water was calm and there was allegedly no nearby boat activity. The sighting, which lasted 30 to 40 seconds, has been accepted by the official Loch Ness Monster Sightings register. Number 9. The first sighting. The earliest report of a monster in the vicinity of Loch Ness appears in the Life of St. Columba by Adaman, written in the 7th century AD. According to Adaman, writing about a century after the events described, Irish monk St. Columba was staying in the land of the Picts with his companions when he encountered local residents burying a man by the River Ness. They explained that the man was swimming in the river when he was attacked by a water beast that mauled him and dragged him underwater, despite their attempts to rescue him by boat. Columba sent a follower, Lugin Mako Min, to swim across the river. The beast approached him, but Columba made the sign of the cross and said, "Go no further. Do not touch the man, go back at once." The creature stopped as if it had been pulled back with ropes and fled, and Columba's men and the Picts gave thanks for what they perceived as a miracle. Now, believers in the monster point to this story set in the River Ness rather than the loch itself as evidence for the creature's existence as early as the 6th century. Number 8. Aldi McKay. The best known article that first attracted a great deal of attention about the creature was published on May 2nd, 1933 in the Invervest Courier about a large beast or whale-like fish. The article by Alex Campbell, water bailiff for Loch Ness and part-time journalist, discussed a sighting by Aldi McKay of an enormous creature with the body of a whale rolling in the water in the loch while she and her husband John were driving on the A82 April 15, 1993. Now, the Courier in 2017 published excerpts from the Campbell article, which has been titled "Strange Spectacle in Loch Ness." The creature disported itself, rolling and plunging for fully a minute, its body resembling that of a whale, and the water cascading and churning like a simmering cauldron. Soon, however, it disappeared in boiling mass of foam. Both onlookers confessed that there was something uncanny about the whole thing, for they realized that there was no ordinary Dizen in the depths because, apart from its enormous size, the beast, in taking the final plunge, sent out waves that were big enough to have been caused by a passing steamer. Number 7. Arthur Grant. On January 5th, 1934, a motorcyclist, Arthur Grant, claimed to have nearly hit the creature while approaching Abriacan near the northeastern end of the loch at about 1 a.m. on a moonlit night. According to Arthur, the creature had a small head attached to a long neck. Then the creature saw him and crossed the road back to the loch. Arthur, a veterinary student, described it as a cross between a seal and a plesiosaur. He said he dismounted and followed it to the loch, but only saw ripples. He produced a sketch of the creature that was examined by zoologist Maurice Burton, who stated it was consistent with the appearance and behavior of an otter, but I'm not too sure. Regarding the long size of the creature, reported by Arthur, it has been suggested that this was a faulty observation due to the poor lighting conditions, and paleontologist Darren Nash has suggested that Arthur may have seen either an otter or seal and exaggerated his sighting over time. But I don't care what they say, that drawing he drew of the beast is the Loch Ness Monster. It's not just a simple otter. Number 6. Surgeon's photograph. The surgeon's photograph is the first photo of the creature's head and neck that was taken by Robert Kenneth Wilson, a London gynecologist, and was published in the Daily Mail on April 21st, 1934. According to Dr. Wilson, he was looking at the loch when he saw the monster, grabbed his camera, and snapped 4 photos. Only 2 exposures came out clearly. The first reportedly shows a small head and back, and the second shows a similar head in a diving position. The first photo became well known, and the second attracted little publicity because of its blurriness. Now, for 60 years, the photo was considered evidence of the monster's existence, although skeptics dismissed it. The photo scale was controversial as it often showed cropped, making the creature seem large and the ripples like waves, while the uncropped shot shows the other end of the loch and the monster in the center. The ripples in the photo were found to fit the size and pattern of small ripples rather than large waves photographed up close. Analysis of the original image fostered further doubt, and in 1993 the makers of the Discovery Communications documentary Loch Ness Discovered analyzed the uncropped image and found a white object visible in every version of the photo, implying that it was on the negative. An analysis of the full photo indicated that the object was small, about 2 to 3 feet long, but I don't know though, that just sounds like a cover up to me. Number 5. Dinsdale film. Aeronautical engineer Tim Dinsdale filmed a hump that left a wake crossing Loch Ness in 1960. Tim, who reportedly had the sighting on his final day of search, described the creature as reddish with blotches on its side. He said that when he mounted his camera, the object began to move, and he shot 40 feet of film. According to Jarek, the object was probably animate, and others were skeptical, saying that the bump cannot be ruled out as being a boat. In 1993, Discovery Communications produced the documentary, again Loch Ness Discovered, with a digital enhancement of the Dinsdale film. A person who enhanced the film noticed a shadow in the negative that was not obvious in the developed film. By enhancing and overlaying frames, he found what appeared to be a rear body of a creature underwater. Before I saw the film, I thought the Loch Ness Monster was a load of rubbish. Having done enhancement, I'm not too sure, they said. Number 4. George Edwards photograph. On August 3rd, 2012, skipper George Edwards claimed a photo he took on November 2nd, 2011 shows Nessie. George claims that he had searched for the monster for 26 years and reportedly spent 60 hours per week on the loch aboard his boat, Nessie Hunter IV, taking tourists for rides on the lake. He said, "In my opinion, it probably looks kind of like a manatee, but not a mammal. When people see 3 humps, they're probably just seeing 3 separate monsters." Other researchers have questioned the photograph's authenticity, and Loch Ness researcher Steve Feldman suggests that the object in the water is a fiberglass hump used in the National Geographic Channel documentary in which George had participated. Now, researcher Dick Rayner said George told him he had faked a photograph in 1986 that he claimed was genuine in the Nat Geo documentary. Although he admitted in October 2013 that his 2011 photo was a hoax, he insisted that the 1986 photo was genuine. Number 3. David Elder video. On August 27th, 2013, tourist David Elder presented a 5-minute video of a mysterious wave in the loch. According to David, the wave was produced by a 15-foot solid black object just under the surface of the water. Now, David from East Kilbride, South Lanarkshire, was taking a picture of a swan in the Fort Augustus Pier on the southwestern end of the loch when he captured the movement. He said the water was very still at the time and there were no ripples coming off the waves and no other activity on the water. Skeptics suggest that the wave may have been caused by a wind gust, but I'd like to think that it was Nessie. Number 2. Peter McNab. On July 29th, 1955, Peter McNab took a photograph at Urquhart Castle that depicted 2 long black humps in the water. The photograph was not made public until it appeared on Constant White's 1957 book on the subject of the Loch Ness Monster, and on October 23rd, 1958, it was published by the Weekly Scotsman. Author Ronald Binns wrote the phenomenon which McNab photographed could easily be a wave effect resulting in 3 trawlers traveling closely together up the loch. Other researchers considered the photograph a hoax, and Roy McCall requested to use the photograph in his 1976 book. He received an original negative from McNab, but discovered it was different from the photograph that appeared in White's book. The tree at the bottom left in White's was missing from the negative, and it is suspected that the photograph was doctored by rephotographing the print. And coming at number 1 is George Spicer. Interest in the monster was sparked by a sighting on July 22nd, 1933, when George Spicer and his wife saw the most extraordinary form of an animal cross the road in front of their car. They described the creature as having a large body, about 4 feet high and 20 feet long, and a long, wavy, narrow neck, slightly thicker than an elephant's trunk, and as long as the 10 to 12 foot width of the road. They saw no limbs, and it lurched across the road towards the loch 20 yards away, leaving a trail of broken undergrowth in its wake. George described it as the nearest approach to dragon, a prehistoric animal that I have ever seen in my life, and as having a long neck which moved up and down in a manner of a scenic railway. It had an animal in its mouth and a body that was fairly big with a high back, but if there were any feet it must have been the web kind, and as far as a tail I cannot say as it moved so rapidly, and when we got to the spot it had probably disappeared into the loch.
Number 10. Very recently, in September of 2022, for those of you watching from the future, which, by the way, how's it going there? If you're watching this in the future, let me know in the comments. Anyway, in September, prominent paranormal scientist and Nessie expert Ron Halliday gave an interview to The Mirror, where he stated his belief that the Loch Ness Monster is from a parallel universe that we just may not be able to perceive. I'll be talking about the insane physics of parallel universes in a little bit, so stick around for that if you want to see me totally nerd out. He stated that many of the sightings and her disappearance thereafter may be explained by certain people being more psychically sensitive and picking up on things that are existing in multiple universes at once, or even something from the past. He went on to say that some people may even walk through portals to another dimension without realizing it, and that is where they may have seen the Loch Ness Monster and other cryptids. With so many sightings across hundreds of years, it's beginning to seem more and more likely that she can actually travel through time and space, and may be a being from another dimension. But the discussion of portals actually brings us to our number 9, the upside down. One of the many ways that parallel universes are often theorized as operating is that they exist at the same time as ours, but with very minor differences, running next to each other like the branches of a tree. However, this is not the only theory. Scientists are now discovering that there may actually be an upside down, like what is described in Netflix's Stranger Things, a universe that is the exact opposite of ours, existing on top, or rather below, our own, and we may have found a portal to enter it. Scientists at NASA's Antarctic Impulsive Transient Antenna, or ANITA for short, have been conducting experiments with very interesting results. Their antenna is located where there is the least amount of radio interference so that they can measure as accurately as possible. And they've found that a constant, quote, wind of particles arrives on Earth from outer space. There are subatomic particles called neutrinos detected, some of which have very low energy and mass that is close to zero, and they can pass right through the Earth. But anything larger or with higher mass gets stopped by the matter of the Earth. Because of this, we should only be seeing these high energy particles coming down from space, but instead they're also seeing some come up from the Earth. And this implies that the particles are actually reversing through time. And this suggests the existence of a parallel universe where time runs backwards and the world exists in opposition with itself. It would have been created at the same time as the Big Bang, with one universe running forward through time and one backwards. After all, every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? Very interesting stuff. And maybe that's where Nessie exists, you know, traveling forward and backward through time, and that's why sightings have dwindled over the years, and we may have just found a way to enter it. Number 8, mirror dimension. Now before I tell you about this next one, give this video a like if you're enjoying it so far. It really helps us out. Now without spoiling anything for you, in Stranger Things, one of the ways to access the upside down is through portals, some of which exist in water, and scientists may have found one on the sea floor. And I think that if another one of these exists in Loch Ness, we may have found our answer on where Nessie goes when no one is watching. About 2 kilometers below the ocean's surface in the Gulf of California, marine researchers have been conducting experiments and collecting data from microbes on the sea floor. Way down below, they discovered something incredible, a mirror pool, where on the bottoms and inside of fissures of some rocks there are microbes that move in very strange ways and create a perfect reflection of what is around them. Some of this is caused by individual ecosystems forming near hydrothermal vents that shoot out all sorts of crazy chemicals and microbes from under the earth. The difference between what collects on the edges of these fissures and in the center is baffling scientists, and some believe that you may actually be able to send something through it into the earth, and that may be a way into another dimension. Perhaps the upside down is this where the Loch Ness Monster goes? Number 7. Alright, we need to actually discuss a few sightings of Nessie from over the years, because they actually help explain where and when she appears and disappears. Sightings have been reported since 564 CE, when St. Columba allegedly had to compel a strange creature to not attack one of their followers. But reports stopped until 1527, when Duncan Campbell sighted a terrible beast on the shore of the loch. There were more sightings here and there, but no real evidence until 1933, when Hugh Gray took a picture of what appears to be the hump and fin of our lake-dwelling friend. When it was published in a local newspaper, it was accompanied by a note from Kodak, the film company, who stated that the negatives had not been altered in any way. It's strange that all of the pictures of Nessie and other cryptids are so blurry and far away, especially since we all have 4K cameras in our pockets now. But maybe she's just smarter than we think, or she can only appear on film and not digital, or perhaps she really does fade into another dimension. But there is a live camera set up on Loch Ness if you want to watch out for her yourself. Number 6. Drop in reports. For the 90 years that Loch Ness Monster sightings have been recorded, there were always multiple sightings yearly, and even if some of them turned out to be a hoax, there were still reports. But 2013 was the first year that there were no sightings at all. This came after a string of years with declining numbers of sightings, so it seems a trend was forming, and she had decided to spend less and less time on our plane of existence. But since 2013, reports have skyrocketed, increasing every year to nearly 20 in each of the past few years. Some of this is because of the webcam system that's been set up, combined with the stay-at-home isolation of the past few years. More people are on the lookout, and more sightings have happened. Strange wakes occur in the water, humps are spotted rising out, and strange movements on the shore are just some of the things captured on the webcam. Number 5. Prehistoric evidence. Now, one of the main theories about what Nessie may be is that she's actually a form of plesiosaur, a sea-dwelling dinosaur that supposedly went extinct about 66 million years ago, along with the rest of the dinosaurs. These were characterized as carnivorous creatures with 4 fins, long necks, and humpbacked bodies who fed on fish and other sea creatures. They were thought to have existed only in seawater, but in 2021 in the Sahara Desert, paleontologists found new evidence of their existence in freshwater. In what was once an ancient freshwater riverbed, bones were found of small plesiosaurs that must have adapted to move from the ocean and into river and lake systems. And if this could happen in one place, what would stop them from doing the same to enter an ancient river system in Europe and eventually become what we call the Loch Ness Monster? Perhaps if they couldn't physically travel there because a little thing called land was in the way, they traveled through another river, one created and formed from space-time. Speaking of space-time, our number 4 entry concerns how it can be bent and morphed to do all sorts of crazy things. When Albert Einstein created his theory of special relativity, he explained that the speed of light was a constant, about 300,000 kilometers per second, or 186,000 miles per second for my American friends, and that this constant could be observed throughout space and time. But the only way that this could be constant between the two simultaneously is if space and time were linked. So, as someone in a rocket approaches the speed of light, they would perceive time to be slower and the lengths of objects to be shorter, compared to someone moving at a much slower speed. So in theory, if you could find a way to bend space-time, either through some advanced technology or perhaps some mystical energy, you could travel incredible distances or through time near instantly. Along with this, the existence of dark matter, which is a strange form of matter that is invisible yet incredibly dense and makes up 5 times more of the universe than normal matter does. It can actually bend gravity and space-time around itself. Is there a large pocket of dark matter in Loch Ness that allows Nessie to bend space around it and move to another time? Perhaps she is actually a dinosaur from the past, unwittingly traveling around and trying to find her way home. Number 3, the Mandela effect. I'm sure many of you have heard of the Mandela effect, but I'll give a brief summary. Essentially, it's a phenomenon of mass misremembering of events, such as the one where it got its name, where before his death in 2013, many people remembered Nelson Mandela having already died in the 1980s. There are countless examples of these collective memory lapses, like Looney Tunes being spelled with O's instead of a U, the Monopoly Man having a monocle, or other small changes in our reality, a glitch in the matrix, if you will. Lots of people think these changes in their memory prove the existence of many parallel universes where each small change creates an entirely new universe. And maybe that's where Nessie exists, as a collective memory from another universe that we no longer reside in. But the theory of multiple universes existing at once is not the one that I find the most plausible. Number 2, the Big Bounce. Now, this is personally one of my favorite things to talk about when it comes to theoretical physics, which doesn't sound exciting, I know, but I promise you it's really cool. When the universe was created in the Big Bang, all the particles and energy of the universe were shot out into empty space from a singular point at incredible speeds. This theory suggests that as the universe expands, space-time and gravity will both be pulling against it as it expands, eventually reaching a point of equilibrium in a few billion years. And when this happens, one of two things will occur. Either the universe will continue to expand and tear space-time, causing the eventual death of the universe, or what I find to be more likely is the forces pulling against the universe will draw it all the way back inwards down to a single point, only to bounce off again, creating another Big Bang and expanding. This is how parallel universes may function, not because there are many existing at once, but because this universe has and will continue to exist an infinite number of times, expanding and contracting, having minor differences each time. This is where Nessie could come into this, because perhaps she existed in one version of this universe, but not another, and some people are only seeing the echoes of where she once was. I think that the number 1 spot on this list of evidence may actually be the sheer lack of evidence. Now, I know this may be contradictory and not particularly good science, but we're talking about a mythological beast here, so we need to take it a little easy on our expectations. While there have been so many sightings, images captured, and even sounds recorded of the monster, no one has captured it well enough on film or gotten close enough to call it true evidence. Scientists have used sonar, radar, trawled the bottom of the lake, and performed all sorts of experiments to see if it exists and found nothing. Yet there are still so many reports that come up each year, and some of them are pretty convincing, and it makes me wonder if Nessie is smarter than we think. Perhaps even a being of greater intelligence that outwits us and moves between universes, baffling humans in each of them, just for a good time. With so many sightings but so little solid evidence, the Loch Ness Monster truly remains a mystery, and it may just be one that's bigger than we ever imagined.
In our number 10 spot, we have the 1941 sighting. It was December in 1941, and two brothers by the names of Callum McFarlane Barrow and Patrick thought that they must have been dreaming. They saw a large creature in the loch near Fort Augustus. Much to their surprise, they ended up seeing the same creature again later that day. They absolutely think that they saw the Loch Ness as it looked nothing like anything they had ever seen before. Apparently in 2018, Callum explained that sightings of the monster were much more common at that time. In our number 9 spot, we have the sighting of 1961. It was May in 1961, and a man named George Coots was with 3 of his friends, and they were driving to Foyers on the south side of the loch at 8 p.m. in the evening. In case you don't know, loch means lake. They pulled over and looked into the loch, aka a lake, where the Loch Ness was known to be in, when they saw what looked like an elephant's back. They tried to flag down a passing car so that they could grab some more witnesses, but it wouldn't stop. They decided to not tell anyone, and George finally came out with the story in September of 2019. Wow, that's a long time to be holding that story in. In our number 8 spot, we have the sighting of May 1969. It was May of 1969, and a man named Fred Millwood was traveling towards Inverness when he spotted what he described as a 10 to 12 foot long creature traveling across the loch at about 4 miles per hour. He described the creature as if it was an upturned boat and there was no head in sight. When the creature was about 200 to 300 meters from the other side of the lake, it vanished. Fred waited for about a half an hour, but nothing occurred after that. Ah, too bad. Poor Fred. In our number 7 spot, we have the sighting of October 1969. In October of 1969, 2 men by the names of Peter Mackenzie and his uncle, Peter, were out fishing in a small boat at the north side of the loch. While fishing, they experienced 2 sightings of old Nessie. The first time it appeared, they saw something under the water that was coming at them like a speedboat from the direction of the Klansman Hotel. They then realized that it was definitely not an underwater boat, and it its shape appeared much different before it disappeared. Then it resurfaced and headed for the middle of the lake, where they were able to see it in profile. Peter described it as if it had the color and shape of an elephant. It then disappeared under the water and their boat was rocked so hard by the waves from it. In our number 6 spot we have July 1987. In July of 1987, Aaron O. Fodhagen was visiting from Ireland and riding the bus on an overcast but windy day. Aaron says that as they were coming up to Ivor-Morriston, she was looking out into the lake from the bus and saw what looked like a giant boulder in the middle of the lake. She said that she knew that there were no boulders in the lake as it's a glacial lake and the sides go straight down. She reported and is quoted as saying, "The object was brown in color and the swell of the waves only came up halfway on the object, so I estimated that it was at least 5 feet out of the water. The length looked more than the height, maybe 5 to 8 feet long. I could not say it was moving as the bus was moving. I got the impression it was stationary. I watched the object for less than 2 minutes, but it felt like eternity. That was the effect it had on me. Stunned I was. My sighting ended when the bus got near Ivor-Morriston." She then went on to speak about how she returned the next day and of course the boulder was gone. In our number 5 spot we have the sighting of June 1989. On the 25th of June 1989, Mrs. Judy Chaffin was visiting Scotland from Vancouver Island when she caught the most extraordinary thing on her camera. The story is that she caught a 10-foot long animal with a basketball-sized head zigzagging across Urquhart Bay at 4:45 p.m. in the afternoon. The sighting was verified as an unknown animal by Dr. Gordon Williamson, who is a marine biologist in the area. The locals of course were convinced it was Nessie. I wish I had that footage to share, but as you can imagine, this was from 33 years ago, and so it is probably on a VHS tape lost in a dusty attic at this point. In our number 4 spot we have the sighting of 1990. 1990 was the year of a few sightings, and almost every year after this, there are many sightings reported. The most notable sighting was from April 26, 1990. 2 men by the name of Trevor Davis and Jimmy McIntyre, both from a city in Scotland called Inverness, reported seeing a huge creature circling in the water near the mouth of River Foyers. They have stated that its neck rose 6 feet out of the water. In our number 3 spot, we have the sighting of 1999. It was February 22nd, 1999, and a tourist spotted Nessie out of the water fully for the first time since June 1963. Apparently, Nessie was spotted out of the water on the shores of Loch Ness by an American visitor. The sighting was at 8:30 in the evening between Doris and Foyers. The creature was reported as being about 10 to 15 meters long with a very long neck. Apparently, as the man approached the creature, it quickly went back into the water and out of sight. Wow. I truly wonder how these sightings are verified, as it's always possible that this man was, on an illicit drug, or that maybe he just wanted some attention, but then it's also possible that he could have actually witnessed an ancient creature that seemingly picks and chooses who it reveals itself to. In our number 2 spot, we have the sighting of March 17th, 2021. This sighting comes equipped with a video, so I'm gonna let you decide on this one. This is a video from a farm looking upon the loch on March 17th, 2021. A St. Patrick's Day sighting. In this video, you clearly see a dark shadow pop up in the water and you watch it move across the lake. As it perhaps turns to the side, we get quite the profile shot of it, and it appears to be long. Now, this is a lake. There are no long or big sharks in this lake, so this is quite a notable sighting. Whether the shadow is a large dark fish is debatable, because it is quite long at one point, and it is quite a dark shadow. Does that look like a fish to you? Would love to know your thoughts in the comment section below. In our number 1 spot, we have the October 19th, 2021 sighting. On October 19th, 2021, not too long ago, Erin Fagan captured something extraordinary on her webcam. She's a bit of a veteran when it comes to filming Nessie, and has a YouTube channel with a variety of recordings that she's made. Quite a lot of them leave you thinking, what is that? This one in particular is one of them. In this video, you see an extremely long and dark something in the lake, and towards the end of the video, you see it go deeper into the water, and then when a boat starts to come into view in the lake, the creature completely disappears. The creature looked to be at least a couple of feet or more. The video is so interesting, and I hate that it's not more clear.